In this video, I'm going to share my best tips to help you pass level 3 of the CFA exam. The big difference with level 3 is the essay portion. This section was the reason why I passed level 3. It's where I focused a lot of my preparation, and it's a place where I saw a lot of other candidates really struggle. The most important thing you can remember is this: time is your greatest enemy on the writing section of level 3. When I took the exam, it was old-fashioned, pen and paper, in a giant room of people. And when time was up, probably 75% of the candidates were still trying to finish their answers. Many people left several questions completely blank and lost a lot of points that way. So managing your time and just getting an answer down for every question will already give you a huge advantage. Now, your answers to these questions should not actually be long-form essays. That term is actually really misleading. All it means is that these are not multiple choice questions. You have to come up with the answers on your own. Do not write out introductions or conclusions, and don't worry about grammar, just use bullet points. If you try to write out more than you need to, you will run out of time. So how do we answer questions quickly? Always practice like it's the real thing. Even more so than level 1 or level 2, we have to learn by doing. The CFA Institute gives you actual old exam questions from the past few years that you can practice with, along with actual grading rubrics. You might be able to find even more of these old exam questions out there on the internet. These old exam questions are your most important study tool. You'll want to start going through these old exam questions about 6 weeks before the actual test. Ideally, you finished all the readings by then. Every time you do one of these practice writing questions, write out your answers fully like you're doing it on the actual exam. If you're doing computer-based testing, practice typing out your answers on the online portal for the CFA exam online. As of the making of this video, this is on prometric.com. Go in there and practice typing out answers on the CFA exam tutorial. Practice using the formula editor if you want, or practice typing out your answers with the regular keyboard. Either way is fine. The more practice you can do typing out your answers in this virtual environment, the better. This way, on the actual exam day, you can focus just on the content, just on your answers, and not figuring out how to actually use the online tools. After you finish practicing an old exam question, study the grading rubric very carefully. See if there were any specific terms in the grading rubric that you missed, or see if you wrote anything extra that wasn't needed. Anything that you wrote that was extra, that wasn't needed, is wasted time that we need to cut out. Practice using the exact terms from the grading rubric on the word-based answers, and practice showing every step of your calculations for the calculation-based answers. That way you can get partial credit even if you make a calculation mistake along the way. Be precise and concise with your answers. If the question only asks for 2 reasons to justify an answer, then only give 2 reasons. The grader will only look at the first 2, so adding 3 or 4 will not do you any good. Pay attention to words like describe, justify, calculate, to make sure that you're giving the grader the right information that they need to award you points. Work through as many of these old writing questions as you possibly can. Do each one literally 3 to 4 times. You want to get to the point where you can recall the answers and the answer format automatically. The whole writing process, the whole format should be very familiar to you by the time you're taking the actual test. It's worth pointing out that the curriculum does change over time. So if you come across a topic on these old exams that you really don't recognize, it's possible that that topic was dropped from the curriculum. Because time pressure is such an issue on level 3 on the writing section, you have to skip questions that look difficult, time-consuming, or that you don't know how to do. Just come back to them later. It's very common for easy questions to be at the end, so it does not make sense to work the test from beginning to end. It's much better to work from easy questions to hard questions, from questions that you can answer quickly to questions that take more time. That way, if you run out of time, you're only getting the questions wrong that were really difficult or time-consuming in the first place. For the multiple choice section, you've already passed level 1 and level 2, so you're going to follow the same principles that worked for you to get you here. Also, time pressure is usually not as much of a factor on this section, so you can take more time to carefully read the questions and make sure you're not making any mistakes. The best practice you can do for the multiple choice section is working through the blue boxes in the text, the end of chapter questions, and the questions on the CFA website. Personally, I recommend sticking with the actual CFA Institute study materials for level 3. That's what I personally used, and there's less overall material than level 2. the books for level 3 are literally thinner, so the readings are more manageable. Level 3 is also more focused on frameworks, concepts, and definitions with fewer formulas and calculations. So it's really important to have a deep understanding of the material. You can't get by with pure memorization this time. Now a couple general study tips to help you remember more of what you study. At the beginning of any study session, it's a good idea to review what you learned the day before. That extra day of repetition will help you remember a lot more than if you only learned it on one day. Also, as you're answering practice questions, imagine that you're explaining the answer to a friend or a family member. We actually remember very little of what we just passively read. We remember more of what we do, as in actually working out questions, but we remember a lot more if we know something well enough to teach it to somebody else. Overall, I did find level 3 to be easier than level 2, but the key is you have to master the writing section. Don't get me wrong, it's still a very difficult exam, and you do not want to underestimate it. Level 3 historically does have a higher passing rate than levels 1 or level 2, but everyone taking level 3 was smart enough and dedicated enough, hardworking enough to pass those levels as well. You are competing against the best of the best. They all want the Charter too, so give it your best shot. Remember to press the like button below and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. Good luck on level 3.